In later years, the rule of two was the most prominent power structure of the Sith. One master, one apprentice, working in secret to undermine the Jedi Order. But the Sith didn't always operate in the shadows. Once, in the days of the reconstituted Sith Empire, after the Great Hyperspace War in 5000 BBY, the Empire spanned thousands of star systems, with millions of civilians and thousands of Sith bolstering its ranks, all under the rule of the Dark Council of the Sith. 12 Sith Lords of immense power formed the Dark Council, which served as the ruling administrative, legislative, and judicial body of the Empire, second only to the Emperor himself. The Empire's affairs were divided into the 12 spheres of influence. Each sphere of influence functioned similarly to our modern ministries and was in charge of a unique aspect of Imperial life, with each sphere led by a member of the Dark Council. Everyone in the Empire ultimately answered to the Dark Council. This trickle-down power structure was the reason spheres were also known as pyramids. In today's video, we're going to break down the 12 spheres of influence and how each unique pyramid of power fit into the larger Sith Empire.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
At the time of the new Sith Empire, 3 spheres oversaw the Imperial military: the sphere of military offense, the sphere of defense of the Empire, and the sphere of military strategy. The sphere of defense of the Empire was responsible for the protection of the Empire from external threats, such as the Republic, and internal threats, such as insurgencies and rebellions. During the Great Galactic War, the Cold War, and the Galactic War with the Republic, Darth Marr was in charge of this sphere, and served as the de facto leader of the Dark Council. Unusually for a Sith, Darth Marr had a strong sense of duty, believing it was his responsibility to protect the Empire and its citizens. The sphere of military strategy focused on the strategic command of the Imperial military. The sphere, in conjunction with the Imperial Conquest Consolidation Corps, devised strategies and battle plans to realize the Empire's military goals. Darth Decimus originally led this sphere during the Cold War, but after his death on Corellia, control was ceded to Darth Marr, making him the only Dark Counselor to oversee more than one sphere. One example of this sphere's activity was the careful construction of the plan to invade and occupy Corellia near the end of the Cold War. The plan would have succeeded had it not been for renegade Imperial forces, which led to a drastically different outcome of the war. The sphere of military offense, as the name might suggest, commanded the Imperial military in all offensive military operations. It was in charge of controlling the armed forces engaged in the Empire's various battles and conquests. One example of the sphere's activity was the military operation on Ilum, codenamed Operation Dark Ice, during which the Republic and Empire bitterly fought for control over the planet's Adagan crystal resources. Due to the similar nature of their responsibilities, these 3 spheres worked closely together and held joint control over the Imperial military and the Ministry of War. Each sphere was instrumental in the effective action of the other 2. The sphere of military strategy played an advisory role in proposing battle plans for all campaigns within and outside Imperial territory. 2 spheres were responsible for the scientific advancement of the Empire: the sphere of technology and the sphere of biotic sciences. Both focused on different aspects of science, but together they drove the Imperial scientific apparatus to new heights. The sphere of technology focused on the innovation and advancement of machinery. This involved many projects for the Imperial military, such as superweapons like the Sun Razor, new cybernetics designed to enhance Imperial soldiers, and other advanced technologies such as stealth generators, shields, and ships like the Fury-class Imperial Interceptor. Notable projects included the construction of the Brood Totem, a device which used radio waves to lure Killiks to its location, and the stabilization of Makeb's core when it was close to exploding. Although many have commanded this sphere, its most notable leader was Darth Asina, who later ascended to the throne of Empress. The sphere of biotic science, on the other hand, focused on alchemical and biological scientific advancements. Led by Darth Acheron, it focused heavily on body augmentation, whether through cybernetics or physical and genetic manipulation using Sith alchemy or magic. The sphere also oversaw the Imperial Medical Corps. One project of note was Project Protean, which studied alien genetic material, such as Killik DNA, to enhance Imperial operatives. Together, these two spheres worked closely to grant the Empire cutting-edge technology. They shared control over the Imperial Science Bureau, which spearheaded research and development of new technologies for the glory of the Empire. Between the Great Hyperspace War and the Galactic War, two spheres were responsible for intelligence gathering and foreign policy: the sphere of Imperial intelligence and the sphere of expansion and diplomacy. The sphere of Imperial intelligence oversaw the Empire's secret services. It was responsible for intelligence gathering, espionage, sabotage, and infiltration. The Ministry of Intelligence was under the control of this sphere, with the minister answering directly to the Dark Counselor in command. The Outreach Bureau was another organization under the control of this sphere, tasked with spreading Imperial propaganda at home and abroad. During the Cold War, Darth Jadus was the head of Imperial intelligence. He directly involved himself in many intelligence operations rather than leaving command to the ministry. After his death and the Star Cabal crisis, Imperial intelligence was in complete disarray. The ministry was disbanded and reorganized into the sphere of Sith intelligence by his successor, Darth Giorgi, who took direct control of the sphere. Meanwhile, the sphere of expansion and diplomacy directed the Empire's foreign policy, either through military expansionism or diplomacy. At the time of the Cold War, the sphere was headed by Darth Ravage, a Sith Lord notorious for his violent temper and little patience. The perfect figurehead for diplomacy. Under his command was the Imperial Diplomatic Service, which was responsible for forging and maintaining diplomatic ties across the galaxy. At the same time, the sphere also oversaw the Empire's expansion into new territories and the acquisition of foreign soil under Imperial rule. As diplomacy and expansionism are opposite extremes, it was common for the sphere to favor one approach over the other, depending on the character of the Sith Lord in charge. Two spheres were responsible for managing key internal administrative duties. The sphere of production and logistics, led by Darth Varon, was responsible for ensuring that the Empire was well supplied. It oversaw the Ministry of Logistics and, in a sense, supported all the other spheres. It oversaw the Empire's trade routes and supply lines, managed its resources and all nationalized industries. It also maintained the systems for transporting goods and people, as well as the slave labor that was essential for completing public works. One example of the sphere's activity was the construction of a colossus in Varon's likeness, commissioned by his apprentice. Another example was quelling the slave rebellion that ensued. The sphere of laws and justice managed the judicial affairs of the Empire. It oversaw the enforcement of laws, from directing local security forces all the way up to forming the Imperial courts. For an example of this sphere's work, Darth Mortis, the head of the sphere, once sent his apprentice to Nar Shaddaa during the Cold War to ensure the Imperial military wasn't breaching the Treaty of Coruscant. Treaties were also an integral part of the Empire's legislation, and breaching them could be seen as a declaration of war. Finally, three spheres were responsible for managing ancient lore, Sith secrets, and mystic rituals. These were the spheres of Sith philosophy, ancient knowledge, and mysteries. The sphere of Sith philosophy, led by Darth Aruk, was responsible for upholding the Sith code and ensuring all Imperial citizens practiced the correct interpretation. It's important to remember that the Sith Empire was a magocracy, a society ruled by those gifted with Force abilities. In this sense, the Sith Code was a doctrine all Imperial citizens had to live by, or they would be in defiance of the ruling class of the Sith. Heretics who practiced alternate interpretations of the Code were hunted down and imprisoned. This included Jedi or light side sympathizers. The Sphere also focused on fostering anti-Jedi sentiment throughout the Empire's territory. One example was the investigation and attempted disbandment of the Revanite cult during the Cold War. The Sphere of Ancient Knowledge, on the other hand, devoted itself to researching and protecting ancient Sith knowledge. This included Sith secrets, such as ancient rituals and sorcery techniques. The Sphere oversaw the Imperial Reclamation Service, an organization responsible for archaeological digs across Imperial territories. One example of the Sphere's activity took place during the Cold War when Darth Marr, the head of the Sphere at the time, targeted Calig, a promising Sith Lord who was delving into mystical arts deemed above his station. After he defeated Thanaton, Calig, now known as Darth Nox, authorized Lord Vagel's research into eternal life. Last but not least, the Sphere of Mysteries, led by Darth Rictus, was responsible for safeguarding dangerous lore and Imperial secrets. Although the public was aware of this sphere's existence, very little was known about its true responsibilities. One example of this sphere's activity was the location and retrieval of holocrons that contained sensitive information. Due to the secretive nature of the sphere's work and the rumor that it wasn't above assassination, Imperial High Society named it the Assassin's Pyramid. This sphere did indeed manage the Guild of Imperial Assassins, who were tasked with eliminating targets likely to leak Imperial secrets. This 12-sphere power structure served the new Sith Empire well for over 40 years. When the Eternal Empire of Zakul defeated the Empire, however, the new Empress Asina restructured everything. She reduced the Dark Council seats from 12 to 5, combining 2 to 3 of the old spheres into 1 to form 5 new spheres. This reduction was intended to counteract the scheming and infighting that had plagued the Dark Council for years. These new spheres were the Sphere of Sith Doctrine, the Sphere of Military Command, the Sphere of Scientific Advancement, the Sphere of Civil, and finally the Sphere of Galactic Influence. But that's a subject for another video. So, what do you think? Which of the 12 spheres do you believe was the most important? Who's your favorite Dark Counselor? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comment section.